Perhaps I've cast too many aspersions on the Northwest Oregon Coast Range before, as people have gotten the impression that I don't like it. Actually, the Coast Range is a gorgeous little mountain range that's quite a bit different than the Cascades. It's kind of lower, older, and just a bit goopier than the Cascades, as it's the first line of peaks sitting between Portland and the ocean breezes. I guess my real complaint about the Coast Range is that there isn't enough single track in it for my liking, but with all the logging roads, this place is a gravel paradise, so if I ever get into the gravel grinding, it will be a shining star. If you are a single track lover who lives on the west side of Portland's metro area, you do, in fact, have some options in the Coast Range, and Gales Creek is one of them, and it's a genuinely good option. This is a cross-country trail with some fun downhill sections. You'd be fine riding this trail on a hardtail, to be honest. We saw a guy with a fully rigid bike the day we were there. Every ride on Gales Creek is a training ride, especially if you're masochistic enough to ride all the way to Rear's Camp, which notches up the total elevation gain to 3,600 feet. Even if you just ride to the top and back down, you'll ring the bell at 2,800 feet of climbing. Gales Creek starts out from the parking area, following the creek and basically riding like a river trail. This first section of the trail is kind of brutal on the way in, with gentle descents followed by punchy climbs. It's an example of what I call bad pedal flow. Pedal flow being a definition of how it feels to ride a trail overall. A trail with bad pedal flow may not have much more elevation gain than any other trail, but the experience of pedaling it is just painful. Bad pedal flow isn't a bad thing. It is, in fact, the best way to get stronger as a rider, but it is a thing, and it's something you should be aware of. This trail has it. Shortly, you'll arrive at this bridge. After crossing this bridge, you want to turn right. The left is boring, to the right is fun, so go to the right. After flirting with the creek for 2 miles, the trail proceeds up into a side canyon following the narrow strip of public land that it's allowed to exist in. After pulling away from the creek, it becomes more of a proper trail with all the features one would expect of such a thing. The forests in the Northwest Oregon Coast Range, what few of them are allowed to exist among the extremely aggressive harvesting activity under the Oregon Department of Forestry, are gorgeous and distinct. You don't come here for jaw-dropping exposures, though. The mountains here are too low in elevation and eroded to allow for that, but the trees are really quite lovely. Anyhow, Gales Creek Trail meanders in and out of canyons on its way up the hill, eventually happening upon these steep switchbacks, which are radiused too small for super fast ripping, but just big enough that you won't have to dab on your way back down. This is intentional. This is, after all, a multi-user two-way trail. Just keep thinking of this as a cross-country trail and you won't be disappointed. The trail keeps climbing through pretty and dark secondary forests until it arrives at a logging road. From here, it gets significantly steeper, but you can proceed left at the logging road and turn right at the next intersection and eventually end up back at the top of the trail. From the top trailhead, you can proceed down to Rear's Camp if you want to, but that adds an extra 1,000 feet or so of climbing to get back out. Fantastic training if you're planning to ride the Oregon Timber Trail or Trans-Cascadia later this year. Yeah, that's what this trail is for. It's for Westsiders who are training for something. Proceeding back down from the trailhead, this little section of trail between the top of the road and the road crossing is steep, loose, and fun. Then the downhill after the road is swoopy.
So the word for today is swoopy. That top section is swoopy.
That's the adjective that seemed most appropriate for this section of trail. Swoopy. It's not particularly fast and you'll have to slow down a lot for these switchbacks, but it's a fun trip down. Gales Creek is one of those rarest of phenomena. The chatty downhill. You slow down so much for all the turns and various obstacles on this descent that even when you're having fun and are definitely descending the hill, you are able to carry on a conversation with the people riding with you, as there's never a significant amount of time that you're not able to talk to each other because your group will be constantly bunching up behind all these tight turns and little pedally sections on the way down. So, chatty. It's a chatty downhill. The section of the trail that follows the creek is really a mirror image of the climb up, but in a good way, where on the way up you were greeted with gradual downhills and punchy climbs. Now you're greeted with gradual climbs and punchy descents. Much nicer, much better pedal flow. It's actually fun instead of horrible. So the last 3 miles goes a lot faster than it did as the first 3 miles, so that's fantastic. Great. You end this trail on a high note. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.